Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Mercury Sextile or Trine Natal Pluto. Now, when we're talking about this transit, it can be about communications, learning, assimilating information, siblings, cousins, neighbors, short journeys, local transportation can be in harmony. It could be with making a transformation. I'll elaborate on that as an example. If you have siblings in your life and if you're trying to make a major change, transformation, this is a time when they can be more in harmony with it. If it's a change, it could be in your home life. It could be, say if you have your natal Pluto in the 4th house, it could be in the home life. It could be, if you have your natal Pluto in the 7th house, it could be in a relationship. First house could be a transformation of the physical body. And some examples. Now, Pluto is also about power and control. So it can be a time where you have good control, I would say, over what you say. And also where your words can also be empowering to others, where you could be, say, empowering somebody or inspiring another person, whether it's to make a major change in their life or what have you. And it's a time where when you have this transit as well, it's also about a good time to learn about matters of power and control, not negative ones, but ones where, such as control in your life, having power in what you can achieve. As an example, if you have your natal Pluto in the 10th house, it could be having your power in what you can accomplish just in general. The 10th house is connected with accomplishments and achievements, and it could also be a very auspicious time if you're doing writing with something Pluto related, such as the occult, which includes astrology or investigation, forensics. It could be support, or also writing about making some major change or transformation or crisis that you had been involved in, and anything that's Pluto related, or psychology even is another example. Another thing too, it's also a time where if you have some close friend or relative or what have you, and they're involved in some crisis, it's a good time to be able, if you need to take like a short journey to help that person cope with it. It's a time where you can more readily do it, I would say, because Mercury is connected with short journeys. Pluto, of course, is associated with crisis, and it's something where you have more of an opportunity to help out and do so without with having a little delay or distractions in doing so. It's also a time to be able to learn things more, assimilate information, in doing so with that Plutonian passion, desire, but not be overly obsessed with it to the point where you're oblivious to everything else. That's what's good about the sextiles and trines are very positive for having, of course, a good relationship of that transiting planet and that natal planet that it's aspecting. And now another thing too is that Pluto, anatomically speaking, is connected with the colon, the prostate, the bladder, the reproductive system. So if there's anything you need to communicate regarding these issues, if you have any issues that I described that are anatomically connected with Pluto, and say you need to go to some primary care physician or what have you, this is a time where those issues can be communicated and be able to do so, articulate them very well. Or if you're waiting on some kind of news regarding those issues, if you do have any, it's a time where you're more apt to at least receive that news with little delay at this time as well. And another thing is that Pluto is associated with death. It can be actual literal death you could be dealing with, but it could also reflect a figurative and an obliteration or destruction of something. If there's something, say, that you need to end at this time, It could be say if you have your natal Pluto in the 7th house as an example, it could be a marriage or connection with a significant other, or even an important friendship. It's more of a time where you're likely to more do so. Again, with little, it can be with less difficulty. It doesn't mean that you won't get a negative reaction regarding it per se, but I think what it could be is where you're able to be able to state what you need to state and be able to do so in a very clear, loose manner without it being, misconstrued or what have you. This could be that time to be able to do so if you need to put in to something. And if somebody has actually, if you've experienced a literal death, whether it's in recent time or it was some time ago, this is a time, especially I would say if you haven't been able to speak about it previously, this could be the time where you could be more likely to, to be able to talk about it. And Mercury is also connected with analysis. So if you're trying to, understand if there's a death, it's been somewhat nebulous or unclear, and you're trying to figure out, and you still don't really know, why the person died, what was the actual cause. If the cause was unknown, you might be able to have a better chance to analyze and understand what actually may have transpired or why the person did pass away. Can also be a time, remember, Pluto is also connected with rebirth and regeneration. So this could be a time if you have to speak regarding these matters, or if you need to make, if you need to bring something back, or you're trying to resurrect something. Say if you have your natal Pluto in the 8th house, it could be something in astrology, maybe astrology business, or because the 8th house is connected with the occult, which is includes astrology, or some kind of insurance or tax related business. This could be a time where you can formulate like a mental plan, I would say, in terms of trying to bring it back and resurrect the business at this time, if that in that example. And Pluto is also associated with crime and corruption, so it can also be a time where if you're dealing with some crime in your neighborhood, say, this could be a time where siblings, cousins, neighbors may be more beneficial in trying to help you come up with ideas. What are you going to do, if there's anything you could do to contain that situation, or that if your areas become crime ridden, could simply be helping you move away from the area as an example. But it could also be such as putting up flyers in the neighborhood, neighbor start some kind of neighborhood watch, as another example. But it's, and of course, corruption isn't limited to your neighborhood. It could be something with your computer where somebody's hacked it, or some other examples. But it's time. It could be a time where you could formulate some come up with an idea and think about ways where you can do something about those issues that could be associated with some kind of crime or corruption if you are experiencing that. Pluto is also associated with viruses, and it can be a time where if you have, again, like I stated before, the examples that are anatomically connected with Pluto, the same can apply with viruses. If there is something where you have picked up some kind of virus, this could be a time where you'd be more apt to be able to articulate those issues, speak about them, at this point in time, more so than usual. And it's also, a time too where, you might be in a situation too, because where you have the ability, if you're trying to receive news about something, and it could be, if it is regarding some virus, this is the time again where you can receive it with little delays or distractions, or I should say without little interruption or delays, and be able to get the news on time. And the news could be favorable as well. And Pluto's also associated with surgery, so it could be a time where if you're in a situation where you're going to have surgery, in the near future, you're planning on it, where you can get the information to do so and have this information be able to process it and understand it more so than usual. Hold on a moment, people. Now it's also a time to, when you have this transit. Pluto is connected with revenge and jealousy. So it's a time, if you are experiencing any of those things, it could be directed toward you, or if you're experiencing it, this is a time where you can more apt to talk about this and be rational in regards to this, and not take, if there's any vengeful thoughts, not to take matters into your own hands and figure out how you're going to deal with these, any of those issues you may be experiencing, whether you're a scorned lover or whatever the reason might be. It's a time where you can really think out more what you can do, constructively, to deal with your situation at the time. And the thing is, another thing about Pluto is also connected with support, whether it's moral, emotional, or monetary. Now, people, siblings, cousins, and neighbors, even people prominent in your early education, could also be people that in short journeys, people that, storekeepers. These people can be of more support at this time, more so than usual. It's more of an opportune time where you may receive news regarding some kind of support that you may need at this, during the time of this transit. Pluto is also connected with shared resources, so it can also be a time to where it could be favorable for those things. It could be a time where if you're in a situation with somebody else, that you're in a shared resources scenario with those people, with this person, communications with this person or people may be more auspicious at this time, more so than usual. So anyway, well, the next thing up, another way this transit can manifest, it could be more positive communication. Communication is Mercury, about power and control, which is Pluto. Now, let's say, for example, if natal Pluto is in the 8th house, it could be over a will, an inheritance, insurance related matter. Another thing, let's say, for example, if could be if natal Pluto is in Libra, in the 6th house, it could be regarding a transformation, which is Pluto, regarding a balance, which is Libra, a diet, which is the 6th house. Now, siblings, cousins, and neighbors, which is Mercury, may favor what you have a passion, desire for, which is Pluto. Now, let's say, for example, if the natal Pluto is in Virgo in the 5th house, it could be analytical or intellectual, which is Virgo, enjoyment, which is the 5th house. It could be extrapolating sports data. Extrapolation, I would say, could be connected with Virgo. Sports is associated with the 5th house. And also to short journeys, which is Mercury, are favorable to get the support you may need, which is Pluto. If say for example, if the transit Mercury is in Pisces, they could be very convoluted short journeys though. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.